Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Shadow the Axolotl. I was in the forest, looking to see the trees, but none were there. All for nothing at all. Listen, man, you have to let me do the intro. Today we are revisiting No One Not a Human, because guess what? A new demo was released. In this video, we're going to see what's new, what's different, and what's the same. We're also going to talk about the things in my previous video which I got right, and the things which now I know I got wrong. And we also have new information about what really are the visitors that might be relevant to our previous theory. So stay tuned, because before that, I'm going to narrate you my experience with the demo. I won't dramatize it as much as I did in the previous video, so sorry in advance for no voice acting this time. I'm saving it for when the full game releases, because today is more of a catch-up video from the previous one. So let's get into it already. The game starts off pretty much the same, with our neighbor telling us about what's going on. The sun's heat is increasing and strange visitors are crawling from the underground. You can't go out during the day and you can't stay alone at night. So we must let people in our house in order to not get killed by these scary visitors. But the visitors look human and we must be careful to not let one of them inside. Our neighbor is staying at our house tonight so we can be safe. Some of the dialogue has been tweaked. One new important thing from the neighbors is that he has a friend of his stay in his house with his wife and daughter. Not much we can make of it for now, but might be relevant later. From the get-go, you can notice the graphics have improved slightly. The pixelated art style is still present though. Some textures are just a bit more polished, which is good. There's a poster on the walls and there's a phone we cannot use yet. But it's an interesting feature to have. The text that shows when you see the windows has been tweaked, but overall what happens remains the same. So let's return to our room and see what will happen the next day. We still get the news first thing in the morning, and through it we learn that there was a powerful emission from the sun and the temperature outside has reached critical levels. What do you mean by the temperature outside though? It could be just me nitpicking, but it gives the impression that the temperature indoors remains the same. In any case, an emergency state has been issued, and people are to refrain from going outside during the day. There is also a new radio feature, which can give us extra information about the story of the game. We have to play the minigame to find the correct frequency so we can get the broadcast. Hello, this is the emergency services dispatcher. How can I help you?
People, they're burning.
Can you describe what you're seeing? Is there a fire?
No, it's the sun. They're burning up in the sun.
Do not leave the house until dark.
No, that guy walks around at night. The pale, scrawny one. He's not human.
Absolute cinema. Okay, so people burn in the sun, and there's a pale visitor killing people during the night. One thing that sticks out to me is how exactly does this heat works? If it's enough to set people on fire, why is not the house burning? We are going to learn later that forest fires are spreading as a result of the heat, but I have some ideas for that which I will discuss later on. For now, we go talk to our neighbor, who explains to us about the drinking beer mechanic, which makes us sleepy. One different thing is that dialogue now does not consume energy, so we are free to talk with our residents as much as we want, which is a good change if you ask me. There's really nothing else to do during the day, so we drink our beer and go to sleep. Like I said previously, the dialogue of the windows is slightly different, but overall what happens remains the same. We see our neighbor's house, we see kids playing outside, we see an empty street. Also, people don't knock on our door just once anymore. They keep banging that goddamn thing until we open up. I like to check the windows first thing in the night, and the constant knocking can get annoying. I'm mentioning this here because it's a demo after all, and such feedback can be good. Anyways, let's check the door. Alright, I'm going. The first person to greet us is the neighbor's daughter, which at this point we can be fairly certain she's human. She comes to take her dad home and leaves. Nothing much different from before. Then we hear someone else knocking. We approach the magic guy and see. Okay, whoa. You see, Bar Guy, which is what he's called in the wiki, and that's what I'm referring the characters to, was a human in the previous demo. But at that point of the game, I wasn't so sure the characters who were human in the previous demo would still remain human now. Bar Guy was tall before, but this is ridiculous. I decided to not let him in this time. Sorry, mate. Next is Cashier Girl. She was a visitor in the previous demo, but she was also a key figure for the lore, so I decided to let her in, knowing I would have to kill her later. Now, that was everyone for night 1, so we go back to our bed and sleep. The news start by telling us the sun's activity is not decreasing, and the crime level has risen. The reports of murders has surpassed average numbers, and it might be related to visitors. We also learn about their teeth. Perfect white teeth might be a signal someone is a visitor, so during the day we ought to check it in with our residents. But first, let's check the radio once again. Welcome, this is time for I Want to Believe, a program where we'll uncover mysteries in the government conspiracies. Today, we'll be discussing the truth about visitors with a special guest, a doctor of science and a respected employee of... Wait, what? He's not coming? How did they steal all his documents? There were kilotons of information in there. Damn it. I knew we wouldn't be allowed to reveal the truth. Mother... Okay, I guess the point of that broadcast is to reveal that the government is trying to hide something. Which is usual, I think. Anyways, we'll go check on Cashier Girl. We have the option to ask her how she lost her house, but she stops before finishing the story. The characters now have progressing stories that advance as we speak with them each day. In Cashier's Girl dialogue, we learn that she used to live with her roommate. Things are about to get sensitive, so viewer discretion is advised, as it is explained that one day she found her roommate lying on her bed motionless, likely after being a victim of SA. The perpetrator found Cashier Girl and grabbed her by the arm and made her sit in the kitchen. This is where Cashier Girl stops her recounting of what happened, and if you wish to learn the rest, we must wait for the next day. So what about her teeth? They are perfect, as expected. If the demo is following the previous one, Cashier Girl is a visitor that has not fully realized she's one. We are to expect that she gives all signs of being one from now on, but I'm going to keep her alive for now. So we grab a beer and go to sleep. New night, more people knocking. Let's check the windows first. We see the neighbor playing with his daughter outside. Just in the next window though, we see bodies of teenagers lying on the ground. The blood indicates it was recent. And in the last window we see the pale visitor standing outside. He's looking at us. Even if we are scared, we still need to check the door. So let's see who's knocking. Okay, that's probably the ugliest character I have seen in the entire game, and that says a lot. Also, I will let you decide if I'm talking about the mother or the child.
I'll be crying if I look like that too, bro. That's up what they be doing to y'all. I ain't even gonna hold you, bro. I be saying that's up like, bro, you probably had the full washing set. Your shit be fire probably if they ain't cut your shit. F it though, bro. It's your life.
The mom says she used to have 5 kids and this is the last one remaining. I'll be honest, I'm not sure why I decided to let them in. It kinda just happened. Oh well. Next we have... Okay, I feel like reading the dialogue for this one. Hey! Can't let me in, buddy. What happened to you? I got caught in the afternoon sun while putting out forest fires. I'm the only one left from a squad. The rest, the boss just wouldn't let them leave. Now, they're on shift eternally. What are you going to do? I'd like to keep putting out forest fires. I wish I died there instead of the guys. But they made it pretty clear that I'm done. I can't get home anymore. The public transportation isn't running. I have to rely on human kindness. Come in. Thanks, man. I don't think I'll be in your hair for too long. At least I won't have to die on the damp ground. They gave us this paper at work before we went to put out the fire out. They wanted us to go to FEMA quarantine zones. But who will go there if everyone who does just dies? Here, I don't need it anyway. Either throw it away or use it for something else. Okay, so this is Firefighter Guy, a new character. He explains to us that his appearance is a result of being caught in the afternoon sun while putting out forest fires. With no way to get back home and while in his last days, he has no choice but to rely on us to give him a peaceful place to rest. I felt really bad for him and let him in. Also, he gives us a piece of paper that will be of use in the full version of the game. We can't do much with it for now, but in an official post, well, it says, overwhelmed by certain feelings for one of your guests, but can't express them directly, just use the postcard to do it anonymously. Write their name and give it to the good people at FEMA. The rest will sort itself out. Don't worry. Okay, so who will we be meeting next? Well, this is Angry Guy. He comes to us apologizing in advance for being angry. Who is he angry with? Well, everyone, it seems. He seems to be especially mad at people who held back their bad behavior because of religious belief and turned into immorality once they lost their faith in God. On top of visitors, we need to deal with that kind of people too. Then, if we ask him how he's different from those people, he will say he likes to believe he's not a maniac or a victim, and he adds that being a victim is worse. Now, I feel most people will be weirded out by this guy when they first meet him, but I have seen this type of character before. If you guys don't know it yet, the devs of this game are Russian, and one thing that changed from the last time I played this game to now is that I read my fair share of Dostoevsky, a famous Russian novelist. So I can safely guess that this guy is based on the underground man archetype of Dostoevsky's novels. I was sure he was a visitor, because the underground man of Notes from Underground is quite a petty asshole. So I let him in, literally just to verify. I'd love to figure out more literary references like that as well. So if you find any, please comment down below. Anyways, time to sleep and get ready for the next day. Okay, it seems we have visitors amongst our guests. This is going to be an interesting day. The news are the usual. Sun's getting hotter, visitors are killing people. But now we get an introduction to FEMA. We also learned that dirt under the fingernails is a sign that someone is a visitor. So we are gonna use it to figure out who's the visitor in our home. Before checking the radio, I decided to look out for who died, and after looking around, I found out that it was the mom. The only other person we let inside yesterday was Angry Guy, so this one was a given. I checked his fingernails and... okay, yeah, I was right. You're dying, buddy. Oh, that was interesting. Apparently those things we just saw are called screamers. As I'm making this video, the community is still not sure of what this is, but it appears when you kill a visitor sometimes. If I were to guess, I'd say they either happen randomly or when you kill a visitor that has killed someone. In any case, The screamers and the fact that Angry Guy left a body means that he was indeed a visitor. But since we're already here, let's check on Firefighter Guy. Well, he says he's worse than he thought, and he doesn't have much time left. He tells us he regrets he can't be with the rest of his team, putting out fires anymore. He's thankful we gave him somewhere to rest, at least. So, oh yeah, the radio.
Have your eyes become red? Your teeth white? Has dirt appeared under your nails? An evil spirit has entered you. You are a visitor. Don't let this blight take over your body. Call our experts immediately at... They'll cast out the evil spirit, cleanse your body of the pernicious aura, and provide you with enhanced protection.
I decided to check on the TV as well today. We first get an ad for groceries delivery, but if we check the TV again, we have a public announcement. From witnesses' testimony, police have learned that his victims all had one thing in common: they were all alone. Additionally, the maniac talks to the victim before committing the murder. Police have assembled a sketch of the suspect from eyewitnesses' accounts. The suspect is a very pale, middle-aged man with black hair. He's of slender build and wearing only pants. Several people have reported that he wears the skin of a different person. This information has not been confirmed. If you see this man, do not open your door and tell him you're not alone in your house. That's all for now. Finally, let's check on Cashier Girl. We now have the chance to ask her what happened in her house. Once the man sat her in the kitchen table, another guy blocked the exit. She heard cheers and laugh coming from her room, like there was a crowd of men in there. She was paralyzed by fear, unable to scream, but once the guy blocking the exit moved to grab something in the fridge, she seized the opportunity and dashed away as fast as she could. Then, something interesting happened. She ran out of breath and collapsed in the ground. But she did not burn. We can ask her about it. She says she spent the whole night there and begins to question her own memory until finally she says she might be a visitor. But how could it be? She remembers her entire life, her family, her childhood. Something is not adding up. I decide to tell her the truth and say she might be a visitor. That's when she panics, saying she doesn't want to die. Now, I have some thoughts to share about this, but I shall save it for later in the video when I start discussing the lore of the game after finishing playing the demo. I decided to check her hands just to make sure, and sure enough, she has dirty nails. I kept her alive though. I want to see where her story is going. I went to check on Firefighter Guy for signs of visitors. His hands were burned as expected, but nails were clean. His teeth were yellow, and he explains it's because of the smoke from the forest fires. He stays alive, not enough to claim he's a visitor. So we go to sleep and get ready for the night. In the window, we see a group of FEMA members inspecting the outside of the neighbor's house. They are taking soil samples. In the next window, more FEMA members. They seem to be taking care of the bodies of the teenagers that were lying there. They also burned the bodies apparently. And in the third window, we see a group of armed soldiers looking for the pale man from yesterday. Okay, time to open the door. It's him. Well, I assume you know this guy, and this video is not your first contact with No I'm Not a Human, so I'm going to just move on and say I'm not home alone. He then becomes disappointed and goes away. Also, remember the TV from earlier? I think they were describing him, although the report doesn't really match the figure. Anyway, I felt like mentioning it. It's funny that he shows up the same day there's a bunch of officers right outside our house looking for him though. Next we have Sun Guy. In the previous demo he was a human, and I also let him in previously because he literally calls you human. And we all know only humans call each other humans, so I let him in again. Oh, it's Egghead Guy. His dialogue has changed, so we meet again. I remember things were different last time, but we leave. It's strange. I don't know how to explain it. Okay, so far he seems to be acknowledging the fact that this is another version of the game, and that we have met him previously. A bit of fourth wall breaking action, but not too severe, I think. Anyway, he continues. I'd like to start our conversation with an action. Can you tell my fortune from a book? Which page should I open to? Now, we're given 3 options and we can only choose one per run, meaning that if we want to learn what all the 3 pages say, we need to play the game at least 3 times. Which is exactly what it did. If we open the beginning, the dead shall risk and speak, but none will heed their words. Gosh, that's still relevant, though it's not a surprise now. If we open the middle, what are you? Me? I am I. You? You were home. Yes. Tragic story. Is this what awaits us? It's quite possible. Finally, if we open the end, it was so long ago. Perhaps it was a dream. Maybe you, I, and the fish only exist in the memory of a person who's long gone. Maybe no one really exists, and it's only raining outside. Or it might become that way soon. What do you think? Are we already someone's dream? Or will we just become one? That's an interesting line. Okay, so what do we make of this? Let's begin with the first page. The dead shall risk and speak, but none will heed their words. This is very similar to what Egghead Guy says in the previous demo. The dead will come and tell, and he will not be believed. Since Egghead Guy says right after that's still relevant, we are to take that this part of the lore has not changed significantly. I theorized in my last video that visitors are the dead brought back to life, and I think that still might be the case. They come from the underground, as it's confirmed by our neighbor. The dirty nails could be an indication that this is true. Cashier Girl is a visitor, but she seems to have memories of her time as a human, so her memories are either fabricated or perhaps they are real. If she passed out when she ran from home and died, she could have been revived as a visitor. If visitors are truly the dead brought back to life, they will have something to say, but they will not be believed. I'll save the rest of the speculation for when we finish the demo though. But what about the other pages? What are you? Me? I am I. You? You were home. Yes, a tragic story. Is this what awaits us? It's quite possible. I'm not sure about this one, unfortunately. The best I can do is bring up another character, Cold Guy. Remember him from the previous demo? According to the devs, his story will have a tragic ending. We also have this clip from one of the game trailers. Yeah, so my best guess is that this line is about him. Or maybe it's about Egghead Guy himself, because he asks us to read his fortune. But who knows? And then we have the final page. It was so long ago. Perhaps it was a dream. Maybe you, I, and the fish only exist in the memory of a person who's long gone. Maybe no one really exists, and it's only raining outside. I wasn't really expecting this kind of line. This opens up space for the dream theory, the theory that everything we are experiencing is just a dream. But just between us, this is so overused that I think it's unlikely it will actually be the case here. If anything, I think this might be a meta commentary of this being just a game that one day might only exist in the memory of a person who played it. Maybe? You don't think so? I'm just babbling in any case. If I'm being honest, I'm completely in the dark with this one, and I can only hope we'll get to learn what this is about once the full game is released. In any case, Egghead Guy tells us to look at this as advice for something we should look for in the future. He also says we must let a person with a cat arrive. He doesn't explain why, only that it will make things easier. Then, he leaves. I have something to say about this person with a cat, but I will save for later. It will make sense later on. And finally, our last visitor are the twins. One of the sisters suffers from depression, They left their parents' house and, with nowhere to go, they turned us for shelter. I decided to not let them in. 2 people is twice the risk, after all. And they were also the last people knocking this night. We head to our bedroom and sleep. The news start by telling us that FEMA is now taking potential visitors to quarantine zones for inspection. But we already knew this from Firefighter Guy. It seems it's now public information. We also get informed of a new way of identifying visitors, which is blood red eyes. We learned that visitors have increased photosensitivity, which is sensitivity to light, and this makes their eyes red. I decided to check the TV right after, and it shows a silly FEMA ad. But one interesting thing to take from it is that 27,000 visitors have been identified so far. The ad also reminds us of the FEMA number we can call using the paper Firefighter Guy gave us. I guess this feature was removed from this demo, though. Okay, so let's check the radio. Essentially, it's broadcasting a new program named Yes, I'm a Human, which you can send photos and it will say if you're a human or a visitor, in case you're not sure, of course. I spoke with Firefighter Guy and he explained that the reason he doesn't go back home is because he doesn't want his kids to see him like that. He doesn't have much longer left, so he'd rather be remembered as a hero, which is pretty sad but understandable. So I spoke with Cashier Girl again and she was startled, scared that we might kill her. I tell her I'm not a visitor, which she replies asking how we can be so sure. She has not checked our teeth or our eyes, which, fair enough, we the players also don't know. We can see the nails of the main character when he grabs a beer or holds a gun, but we don't know about the teeth or the eyes. Could we be a visitor ourselves? Maybe. But since this was brought up, I think the answer is no. Maybe in one of the endings of the full version we become a visitor. I'm making this prediction. Anyways, Cashier Girl ends her dialogue by saying some pretty depressive stuff about how we are all going to die, either from the sun or visitors. Death is coming, no matter what. I decided to check on her eyes and yeah, red, as expected. Then I went to talk with Sun Guy, and he eagerly shared his belief that visitors are aliens that invaded Earth, and the sun's heat is here to kill them and cleanse us of our sins, or something like that. Well, he also calls FEMA heretics, because they are interfering with the natural order, which is to have the sun burn everything, I guess. Then he says, may the sun damn those redacted holes who threw my mother into a puddle, which serves to let us know that FEMA has taken Sun Guy's mother to one of the quarantine camps, and that's the true reason why he resents them. I also went ahead and checked everything on him. His teeth are broken, his hands are clean. His eyes are yellowish, but the guy is a sun worshipper, meaning that he probably spends his free time looking directly into the sun, so that's plausible. Sun Guy lives, for the joy of the Sun Guy fans out there. Oh yeah, Firefighter Guy also has red eyes, result of the smoke of the forest fires. I'm not killing him, so I go to sleep. Once we look at the window, we see the neighbor's house burning. We wonder if the fire was set out on purpose and if anyone survived. Then, in the second window, we see the pale visitor standing, holding a severed head with a helmet in his hand. In the final window, we see the aftermath of a massacre. The soldiers that were yesterday hunting the pale visitor now lay strewn upon the ground. It is possible that the pale visitor did all of this by himself. Despite the horror, this is not much different from the previous demo. I guess it makes sense. No need to change drastically what was arguably one of the best parts of the game. In any case, let's check the door. We have the FEMA agent showing up. Like in the previous demo, he's taking someone from our house for examination to see if the area we live is safe. He's going to take one random guest inside our house and leave. A few things worth mentioning, though. First, we learn from him that visitors rarely move in groups, maybe never. Second, Fema is studying the effects of the sun in the environment. Since they stay in the sun often, they need to be careful, and that's the reason behind the hazmat suits. This is going to be a point of discussion after finishing the demo. At any rate, he takes Cashier Girl with him and leaves. It sucks because we won't get to see the rest of her dialogue in this playthrough, but at least we know for sure she was a visitor, and our human guests are still safe inside. Next, we have Amogus guy. Nah, screw you, bye. Oh, he said he was going to our neighbor. Well, I have some bad news for you, buddy. Next, it's the neighbor's daughter. She's panicking and begging us to let her in. She manages to explain to us that visitors came to her house and sat with them. They spoke with her dad and killed him. With nowhere to go, she came to our house. I let her in, of course. She was the last person knocking tonight, so I go back to the bedroom and fall asleep. The morning news starts with yet more Fema propaganda. We also have a new sign for visitors, which are hairless armpits. This one was included in the previous demo, so that's completely new. Alright, we will use this information to check on our guests then. First things first, I decided to check on the TV, and today we could do it twice. First, we get more text about the paper firefighter guy gave us that we still can't use yet. Second, we have an ad for Energica, an energy drink which gives us an extra action during the day. We can buy more using the delivery service using a number, but we can't use the phone yet, so I guess that's why the number is dashed. Okay, so first thing I decided to do after leaving the room today was to speak with the little girl. She says that they came in and started talking, and Dad said it was wrong. Then she freaks out and doesn't finish it. I want to use this opportunity to talk about a small theory. I think it wasn't visitors who killed her dad and burned the house. Those who did it were Fema agents. First evidence for this is that before the house was burned, we had Fema agents taking soil samples. Second, we have what the little girl just said. Dad said it was wrong, which is probably about the Fema methods. And lastly, something the Fema agent at Eldor said yesterday. Visitors rarely move in groups, maybe even never. And the little girl specifies that there were multiple people in the house. She does it when she says, they came in, and when she says, visitors came to the house. Visitor is obviously a tricky word, and it's used on purpose here to create diversion from the facts. But it's safe to say that the visitors were actually Fema agents. If you think about it, they come in disguised and kill you in cold blood. Maybe they aren't so different from one another after all. Okay, so with the rest of the day, I decided to check on everyone. Firefighter guy says to us that the bosses took his uniform, that many firefighters are dying and their co-workers can't even retrieve the bodies. The higher-ups, however, are more concerned about the uniforms, forging the crease in a line like horseshoes, but not a single one for the people. The purpose of this dialogue here is to display the dehumanization that is happening in society. People are being treated as disposable. Meanwhile, the elites only care about diminishing their monetary losses. Makes me wonder if things got this way because of the sun and the visitors, or if those things are the result of the current state of society. I went on checking everyone for signs of visitors, but everyone was clear. Firefighter guy didn't have hair on his armpits, but let me give you a content warning for severe burn marks. If that triggers you, skip to this time on screen. It's expected that his armpit hair is all burnt, considering what remained of him. So, firefighter guy stays alive. That was all for today. Time to get ready for the night. Oh shoot. I almost forgot the radio.
Once upon a time, two brothers lived near a dam. The splashing water brought to mind images of cold, foamy drinks. And when the two brothers grew up, they started Bobber Brewery together. Bobber Jenny Beer. has become one of the most in-demand alcoholic beverages in stores and at bars. Bobber Cherny beer. Drink the good stuff and drink a lot.
Okay, that's just a beer ad? Okay, I will break this down. Well, bobber is one of the few Polish words I know which means beaver, and according to Google, Cherny is the Czech word for black. I'm guessing here this is a reference to Bobber Bros, an indie game studio that also makes psychological horror games, and that has worked with Traioskas before, the main studio of No Not a Human. I would assume they are involved with the No Not a Human project, and that's why they get their own themed beer. I tried to get an interview with the people from Traioskas for this video, and if I succeeded, I could give you guys a more accurate answer. Then again, maybe I didn't try enough. We'll see next time. In any case, shout out to Bobber Bros. Alright, now we go to bed. In the window, we see the remains of the neighbor's house. It becomes a warning to what might become of our own house soon. In the second window, there's an impaled skull with its teeth removed. You take this as a threat from the pale visitor. In the final window, we see more FEMA agents. They are inspecting the site of the recent massacre. It's clear that they didn't expect the pale visitor to survive an encounter with so many armed people. Finally, time to open the door. Our first guest is widowed woman. Her story is that her husband is dead and she's carrying his dead body in grief. She is exhausted and our house is the only place left she has to rest. I decided to let her in, despite it bringing a corpse to my own house. Next, we have old lady. She speaks in this almost prophetic manner, saying that since she's here, it means that she was meant to be here. Unfortunately for her, I don't really believe in destiny, so I say she better look for where she's meant to be, somewhere else. She was the last guest of the night, so we go to her bedroom and... And that was the end of the demo. We are not getting any endings for this version of the game, so there's no way to know if we are safe or not. I mean, in the last night we only let widowed woman in and we didn't have the chance to check on her, so it doesn't really matter. Most importantly, now we can finally talk about the lore of the game, which is the reason we are here after all. Alright, I have a bunch of things to say about this demo, but first I want to address the stuff I said in my previous video quickly. So let's set things straight before moving on to the new stuff. I said in my last video that I shouldn't have got the ending where you die to visitors, because all the people in my house were human, which is true, but you see this guy? He may be human, but he kills you nonetheless. I get the memo though. You are inviting strangers to your house, visitors or not. You can't be careless and let shady people in. That was totally my fault on this one. I just wish the game specified that my death wasn't to a visitor. Another small thing from the previous video was the number 0451 from the FEMA hotline. It is not from the Bible, as I have suggested. That was a silly mistake on my part. It's actually from the novel Fahrenheit 451, published in 1953. It's a story about a dystopic society where books are burned, and Fahrenheit 451 is the temperature which paper is supposed to catch fire and burn. It's a comment on censorship and a classic book referenced in many games. Since FEMA is trying to control the information about visitors, makes sense that such number is tied to them. The thing about the Book of Numbers could just be a coincidence then. Also in my last video, I made a theory that the sun isn't really burning, which now I take back because the demo pretty much hard debunked this. Well, to start things off, we have this new clip from one of the trailers showing the sun literally burning, but not the way it's supposed to. And also, the reason why I made such a theory in the first place was this one line by Egghead Guy saying that, and I don't yet feel that the glaciers are going to melt anytime soon. But there's a new line by Bar Guy saying, whatever you look, someone's dying, or the glaciers are melting, or the forests are burning. The world has a fever, which could be interpreted as Bar Guy not being a reliable narrator of sorts, but I'd rather take this as a hint that I was wrong in my previous judgment. Okay, so before talking about theories and the story of the game, I also want to use the segment of the video to talk about the new demo itself, the new mechanics and the new characters. Some of the stuff I will say here will break down how the game works, which can influence the way you play it, like the way I knew the little girl was a human and Cashier Girl was a visitor. I also am going to talk about the new characters, including the ones that didn't show up in this playthrough, so if you want to get that stuff for yourself, skip ahead to the time mark on the screen. Now, for those who will stay, let's get right into it. There's a bunch of new characters in this demo, and many from the previous one are missing. My guess is that most of them will show up in the full version of the game. In my last video, I said that I tried having Cashier Girl at my house, which we know is a visitor, but she didn't kill anyone the whole time. And people have explained to me that visitors only kill someone if there are at least 2 of them in your house. That's also true for this version. If someone died in your house, it's because you didn't make a mistake just once. You made a mistake twice. So from the new characters, who is human and who is a visitor? You probably want to know that. And the answer is, now it depends. You see, there are a few characters in the game who are scripted and will show up at your door at specific days. Those characters seem to be locked to be of a certain species. So Cashier Girl will always be a visitor. Firefighter Guy will always be human. Anyone else who shows up randomly can either be a human or a visitor. So, you know Angry Guy? He was a visitor in my playthrough, but in yours, you could let him in and he could totally be a human, surprisingly. Sun Guy, who was a human in the previous demo, can also appear as a visitor, so don't let your guard down. I'm not sure how much of this will keep the same for the full version though, so use this information carefully. I could also go on and tell you every character I know for sure is a human or a visitor, because they have a scripted appearance, but it's not really the point of this video, and this information is available online if you really want to know. Sorry, it's just that the point of this game is to second guess every single decision you make, and if you know what you're doing, it really takes away from the experience. Playing the demo with the information I knew from the previous one massively reduced the overall tension I felt during my first playthrough, so I'm saving you guys from that as much as I can. Also, I think this is going to be a big thing if the full version will deliver or not. Things will need to be very different to take away the sense of safety from playing the previous versions. At any rate, let's talk about the new characters. Okay, so in our run we met Angry Guy, Neglectful Mother, Firefighter Guy, the twins, and Old Lady. I'll speak briefly about each one of them and then move on to the ones that didn't appear. Angry Guy has some dialogue about a sun worshipping cult that has been spreading, the kind of stuff that Sun Guy talks about. He's really angry at that cult, it seems. Neglectful Mother will lose her child from sight the day you let her in. There are also some theories going on that the kid's not really hers and she's just making stuff up to gain your sympathy and let her in. I gotta say, if that's what she wanted to do, she should have at least found a better looking kid. Firefighter Guy, we already know about him. One of the best characters in the game so far, in my opinion. The twins are 2 separate characters. One is more optimistic, but drained from everything that has been going on and having to take care of her sister. The other one is pretty depressed and apathic to everything. They seem to care a lot for each other, though. Old Lady is one character we do not know much, as she appears at the night the demo ends, so we can't read her dialogue. And what about the new characters? There is Positive Guy, who is a man without legs and in a wheelchair. He thinks his legs will grow back one day and has a maniac side, rambling about stuff, and despite his attempts to be friendly, he's weird. He gets really pissed at you if you refuse to let him in. The last new character from the demo and one that didn't show up was Fortune Teller. She's the type to use all sorts of divinations to figure out the personality of the protagonist and his future. Personally, I think she can't really divine anything and is just there to poke fun of charlatan types that try to get stuff from you. There's also one character that didn't show up in the demo but was mentioned, which is the lady with the cat. There is that cat in one of the trailers of No One Not a Human, and also there's this character from a teaser from Twitter, so it's probably going to be her. Again, we don't know much about her except that Egghead Guy thinks we should let her in. Okay, alright. Now it's finally time to talk about the theories we have for this game and how the new info from the demo affects it. From my last video, I made a theory that visitors that the dead brought back to life through radiation. I had a few reasons to think this. Let's begin first with the idea that visitors are the reason dead. The idea behind the theory was what Egghead Guy said: the dead will come and tell, and that visitors seem to come from the underground. The Dirty Nails could be an indication of this, and both the Dirty Nails and what Egghead Guy said about the dead speaking stayed in the new demo. So what about the radiation then? The idea behind the radiation is the hazmat suits that FEMA members use, and that they must use to be protected from the sun. The way they take soil samples and take people to quarantine camps for testing also makes me think that the way they treat the visitor outbreak is more like a disease or contamination of sorts. In the previous demo, one of the symptoms of someone being a visitor was that they appeared blurry in photos, and radiation can interfere with cameras, so I took this as an indication. The blurry photo symptom is not present in the new version of the game, but it's still too soon to say it was removed completely. It could appear in the full version, as well as other signs for someone being a visitor. Before talking about my own proposed theories, I want to address some other theories first, and things we need to take into consideration when theorizing. First, there's this big theory of visitors being aliens, as told us by Sun Guy during his many ramblings. Thanks to Angry Guy, we know that there is a sun-worshipping cult spreading, and we can infer that Sun Guy is one of its members, or at least he believes in the stuff they say. With a character like that, I think the stuff he's saying should be taken as a crazy drunk man rambles who was brainwashed into joining a cult, and not really what's actually happening. So the idea that visitors are invaders from space, and that the sun is cleansing them, is most likely not what's actually happening in the story. So what about supernatural explanations to what are visitors? Assuming the dead being brought back to life thanks to radiation is not supernatural. That is, like, what if they are ghouls, doppelgangers, or vampires? I'll be honest, I resist those explanations. I almost feel like the game is leaning to make you think what's going on can only be explained by magic, or God, or the devil. But this feels to me like it would be a cheap explanation, and what's really going on is much more interesting. There's also the new radio broadcast about someone turning into a visitor when an evil spirit enters them, which again gives the impression of the game itself making fun of that kind of theory. But there is also way too much evidence for this not being something that can be explained with sci-fi. I use the symptoms of dirty nails and blurred photos to explain what's going on, but I don't see how it would explain the increased photosensitivity, hairless armpits, and perfect white teeth. What about not walking in groups? What about only killing people when there are at least two of them in the same place? So let's say that there is some validity to the supernatural explanations. The previous game had references to the apocalypse, so could it be that what we are playing is actually a purgatory of sorts, and visitors are the souls of the damned? If I were to go with any supernatural explanation, that's probably the one I'm picking. One big thing that sticks out to people is about the intruder, the pale visitor. He only kills you if there aren't other humans with you. I tested it out, and if you only have visitors inside your house, you are still dying. So why he doesn't kill you anytime he wants to, even though he clearly could break inside your house and take you down, as he's strong enough to kill a squad of heavily armed soldiers by himself. There's this thing about vampires not being able to enter houses unless they are invited, but this is the same thing with the intruder, and there's nothing indicating visitors are out there drinking blood. So I'm going to propose an explanation that has nothing to do with the supernatural or mechanics of being a visitor. I'm actually going to use psychology. From the TV, we learned that all the victims of the intruder have one thing in common, which is they were all alone. We also learned that he talks with the victims before committing the murder. So what if the reason he will not kill you if you are not home alone is because it's his personal preference? Many serial killers had personal rituals they had to follow when committing their crimes. So what if Intruder is one of those and he just won't kill you because that's against his principles? Again, that's just a theory, but that's what I'm going with right now. The Intruder is also complicated in a sense that he can survive a confrontation with an armed squad, but other visitors don't seem to be that strong and easily die to gunshots. We don't have any sort of explanation for that yet, so let's hope we get some in the full release. Then what about my proposed theories, and how do they hold out with the new demo? Let's go first with the radiation thing. Firefighter Guy was out during the day and he was burned as a result. However, he's not a visitor. And yet, FEMA still uses hazmat suits for protection and still takes soil samples for inspection. Remember when the neighbor told us he had a friend staying inside his house? What if that friend was a visitor? What if he wasn't a dangerous one? What if there was a hazard in the perimeter of the neighbor's house which is tied to the visitor outbreak? What if the reason why the neighbor and FEMA fought was because the neighbor didn't want his friend to be taken? Again, we can only speculate, but I wouldn't be surprised if one of those things were actually the case. And what about the heat? It's enough to cause forest fires, but our house is safe. And if it really was so hot, you could be blinded by looking outside and burned to death when outside under the sun. How the house is not burning? Why wasn't Cashier Girl burned to crisp if she collapsed outside and spent the entire day there? When Firefighter Guy spent some time outside during the afternoon, he barely made it out alive. The mechanics of the heat are still very confusing to me, even though I accept that yes, the sun is exploding or its activity is increasing or something. Are visitors immune to the sun's heat and that's why Cashier Girl didn't burn? Possibly. But then again, it's just a possibility. But we need to move on to the next part of our theory, which is visitors being the dead. Let's take what Egghead Guy said. The dead shall risk and speak, but none will heed their words. We didn't get to see Cashier Girl's full dialogue because she was taken by the FEMA member, but if we stick with her until the last day, here it is what she has to say. I hope all this ends soon. What's up with you? Visitors! They're coming for us! Don't you hear it? Death is calling us! Visitor, human, what's the difference? We are all the same before death, so why torture ourselves in anticipation? Let them come. They want what's best for us. Let the visitors come. You don't seem well. No, I just seen the light. I am a visitor. We and humans are one. We're so similar. We're like mirror images. Accept death along with us. I don't think you understand what you're saying. No, you don't understand anything. Death is coming. The sun heralds death's approach. You'll meet it soon. Very soon. The dead shall risk and speak, but none will heed their words. Perhaps what the dead have to say to us is precisely those words. The sun heralds death's approach. This seems to settle it then. Visitors are indeed dead. But it's strange. If visitors aren't humans, could it explain why Intruder wears the skin of someone else? Could this explain the symptoms? What if there's some sort of demon who steals the skin and flesh of someone who was buried, and that's the reason for the dirty nails but white teeth? But the way FEMA handles visitors gives the impression it's a hazard of sorts, and the sun is involved with the process somehow. Why take people to experiment with in quarantine zones? Why wearing hazmat suits? Even with the new information of the demo, we are still grasping at straws here, trying to make sense of things. The end of times is coming. That's one thing we can be certain of. To finish this video, and to give us any sort of direction, we have the words the game tells us to go with. You can see more and more visitors on the street. The sun is heating the earth more and more. Death is on our doorstep. Nobody wants to die, but you need to survive. Do you want to live more than others? Or is it not a desire to live, but a fear of the unknown? What is there after death? We don't know, but maybe the visitors know something. Maybe we'll be able to survive the summer, so that this fall we can try to discover the answers to the most terrible question. We just have to wait a little. Survive the summer heat. Don't let the visitors in. And that's the end of the video. If you enjoyed, please consider subscribing for more stuff like this. Also, while we wait for the full release of Noah Not a Human, why don't you check out this other video of another indie game about the end of times? If you liked the psychological horror of Noah Not a Human, this might be right up your alley. In any case, feel free to comment down below any theories you have, and I'll be sure to check them out. That's it for now. See you next time.